session, kind of a slant on education, so it's kind of a cool session, I think. We have our first presenter. It's Brianna and Noor? Noor, okay. Plastic and Water Environmental Ethics Research Project. Oh, sorry, you didn't have a story.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry.
Okay, let's see. Hi everybody, my name is Noor Masri. I'm a public health major, minor in philosophy at Ghana. Today we're going to be presenting our plastic and water project. It's an environmental ethic project. However, this project is only one out of 4 more projects we're working on right now with Dr. Kerr. To make it clear, we're here standing not only as students, we're standing here as philanthropists because we believe active philanthropy requires continuous advocacy. Let's go here and see. Okay. Oh, I have this here actually. As we settle on the Anthropocene, we're responsible for straining out the sedimentation using reason and linguistic analysis to come to a point of dialogue between scientific methods and the perennial question of the human value. Throughout the history, the human value itself developed through different aspects, through a critical connection between social, biological, and chemical sciences. And that's where we believe we're standing here as advocates, not only for a science project, but for a life project. All right, let's see. Oh, sorry. So why do we care about environmental ethics? We believe that environmental ethics provide the moral ground, not only for the physical form of nature, but also for us as a human, as the second dimension of life. Our bodies and water. According to the National Center for Biotechnology Informations, over 90% of our blood plasma is water. The brain, heart, composed of 73% of water. The lungs are about 83% of water. The skin contains 64%, and in the end, the bones are watery, 31%. And now I'm going to hand it to Jen so she can expand more on the education methods we used and why did we care about the structure of the project itself. And you can go, Jen.
Hello, my name is Jen Swanson. I am a philosophy major at Ghana University, and I'll be going over the educational methods we used during our presentation. So the 4 that we used was cooperative learning, which is us asking questions beforehand asking questions during our presentation to the students about what they knew about the project beforehand. And we also use active recall, asking the students what they knew about plastic and what they've learned in their school. We also made sure to only have one message per slide in order for them to better understand our message. And finally, we used visual shading, meaning we used lots of pictures so that they could have a visual representation of what we were talking about. So this is how well each student was able to understand through those different methods. And as you can see, the best use was of only having one message per slide. As soon as 2 messages came in through, they got kind of confused and not sure and couldn't really recall what was going on. And even the cooperative learning and active recall didn't have too much engagement either. So during our presentation, we made sure to simplify it, but still get our main message across. So we focused on how plastic was made, that it was man-made, it came from natural gases and petroleum, how the process was made through heat, and finally going over the building blocks of the chemical structure of plastic. We then went over how many plastic factories there are in Erie, being 56, and also some of the main industrial companies that make plastic. And now I'll be handing over the rest of the presentation to Bree.
Hi, my name is Brianna Caluzzi. I'm a psychology major at Gannon University. For when we were talking to the students, we really wanted to utilize the imagery. So here's some examples of the imagery we used, the real microplastics on the finger, and then the imagery of the fish eating the microplastics, and then we eat the fish, and then we consume the microplastics. So, and then we went over stormwater runoff with the students, and we explained to them why stormwater runoff happens. It occurs when rain or snow hits solid surfaces, like in urban areas. And as we continue to develop more urban areas, it's just going to continue to get worse. And it's actually the biggest contributor to pollutants in our water system. So we focused on what we can do to help prevent stormwater runoff and like the additional pollutions in it. And we shared with the students that construction workers and such should focus on creating areas while they're building for the water runoff to go. And then we focused on individual steps we could take and told the students like not to litter, don't dump things down storm drains, pick up after your pets, things like that. And then this was something we didn't really fully cover for the students because it was just going to be a lot, but the plastic polymers, they comprise about 70% of petrochemicals, and the main byproducts of plastic polymers are high-density polyethylene, low-density polyethylene, linear low-density polyethylene, PVC, and polystyrene, and polypropylene. And these are all just different types of plastic. And then I'm going to give it back to Noor.
Thank you. Okay, in the end, as a conclusion, we want to talk about admonishments, how it can be the new preventative medicine of culture. Admonishment about plastic in water involve our collective responsibility and individual and global initiative in order to stop using plastic, hoping in the long term that water is going to become healthier, that water is actually going to become valuable for the next generation as we live in a world that's declining. We're hoping that as we are not able actually to undo the irreversible damage we caused to Earth, we're hoping that next generations have their, that the next generations actually have the tools to stand on. Furthermore, the environment of the sanctuary itself allowed us as students to examine how we are not only the sum of our biological chemical structure, but also we are the sum of our socioeconomic system, our culture, our backgrounds. And that's where we think public education is the key to, it's actually the key to make a change in the education system. By having an educational structure focuses more on social equity, educational equity, human equity, to provide a holistic approach to human existence. And that's where in public health, as we spend so much money, spending thousands of dollars looking for the best health insurance, we're spending thousands of dollars actually looking for the best employer with the best benefits. We have to understand the social determinant of health. We can't have this determinant of health. We can't have that positive outcome of health without looking at the built environment, without looking at economic stability, without looking at education, social community, and contact. And that's where a holistic approach of a human should include the emotional, social, moral, spiritual, and cognitive and psychological factors that makes us who we are. In the end, we want to say thank you for all the educators out there, from early education to doctorate education, because they're sharing their passion to change the world in a world full of the digital and virtual world. And we're just here to be advocates, philanthropists, and we want to thank you all for having us here. Thanks. And this is our topic. Sorry.
Questions?
Yep. Is there any questions? Go ahead.
So you gave a presentation that you kind of went over to the students?
We did. We actually adjusted to meet the genre of the audience. We made sure it's most elementary level. we didn't focus more on scientific terminology, medical terminology, because they have a short attention span. So we actually, oh, I can go back here. Let me see here. We shared a slide. Oh, yeah, here. If you can see here, we had like a small introduction about microplastic, and we just had like a picture of microplastics so they can see what microplastics are. Because microplastics are so dangerous in a point where once they're in the system, we can't get rid of them. Yeah, Dr. Kerr.
So you were at, to the point, school for traumatized children.
Yes,
Yeah, Sarah Reed.
but I didn't want to share if it's just in
Just
case.
to clarify.
Yeah, we were at Sarah Reed Sanctuary.
So their
Alternative.
environment is already a volatile one, and then trying to connect their environment to the larger so-called natural environment.
Natural environment, yes.
Our goal, you know.
And that's why we talked about educational equity, because giving these students the same resources that we're giving, I would say, traditional students won't have any positive outcome either on their health or education. And that's we focused more about developing a specific program that meets their needs. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I was curious, the students, I mean, given their backgrounds, I was kind of curious in general, but were they aware of plastic pollution issues when you started?
That's where we actually did this in social experiments. So we asked the question what they know about plastic, and only one student, unfortunately, was able to say plastic are bad, but like they didn't have a further knowledge why plastic was bad. But from my own understanding, their teachers also, they focus on, let's see, active recall. Because their teachers keeps like having these like class experiments where they have specific structures and questions they keep repeating every day, I think, to the students to make sure they understand the overall problem.
I like that graph where it tells you one message per slide is effective as opposed to too much content on a slide. Maybe I would be curious, like as a next step, if like they retain the information at the beginning more than at the end, or?
That's where actually we did the cooperative learning compared to active recall, because we started that question in the beginning, and then in the middle of the presentation, we actually asked about the previous information we presented. So they were able to actually, they were able to tell us actually what we were trying to teach them. Any other questions?
I was going to just add something for educators here at Presque Isle.
Mm-hmm.
It would be kind of interesting after the students get educated by you guys and then bring them down here and actually see, walk the shoreline and actually see the plastic material. You know,
Yeah, we did actually bring samples, right, Dr. Kerr? We had like samples with us, like showing them the numbers on the plastic, because we focused about like plastic number 4, 7, and 8, that they're so actually poisonous. So we had like samples also, but I know Sarah Reed, they have their own also program to educate students about the environment.
But I think that to take them outside, to see the context.
Yeah.
Yeah, and many of those kids had not been, probably may not have gone to Prescott. Ironically, they're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
a lot of them pretty do. They do step on the beach. It's quite an experience for them.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right.
All right, thank you.
You could have it. How do you say your last name? Okay, I was going to be my guess, but I could see how it can be pronounced differently. All right. All right, well, we're just going to keep moving right along. We have our next presentation, which is Environmental Issues in Freshman Composition with Dr. DiMatteo.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for coming to our presentations. I wasn't expecting so many people to attend the education sessions, but it's awesome to see you all here. So in this presentation, I'd like to explain how I've organized a first-year college composition course that creates opportunities for students to engage with environmental issues while developing their college-level writing, rhetoric, language, and literacy skills. Now, the traditional freshman composition course is typically organized around a set of writing assignments that each focus on a different skill, but there's not really a unifying theme for the course, and so the result is it kind of has this feeling of randomness, and the assignments are disconnected, other than perhaps sequentially building on skills that they learned in earlier assignments. But I wanted to design a course that keeps the structure of these writing assignments in the skill building while also having a coherent theme around which the writing assignments revolve. I thought this would make the course feel more unified for the students, make the assignments feel more authentic, and increase student motivation. So I designed my version of Foundations of Academic Writing so that students would see themselves in relation to the environment through these roles as writers, scholars, and citizens. And I do this through 4 major writing projects. And these are a memoir essay, a rhetorical analysis essay, a research report, and a policy proposal. So in the rest of this presentation, I'll explain each of these in turn. In the memoir writing unit, students examine their own attitudes toward nature by reflecting on an event in their past that sparked a realization. And there are 2 core questions that students are really examining here. One, who am I because it's memoir writing? And then the other is what's my relationship to the natural world because it's a nature writing memoir. So the essay in the end should reflect on that relationship, should reveal the author's internal growth, and arrive at some kind of insight that's shared with the reader. So to help students learn about both of these types of writing, with memoir writing and nature writing, I provide them with a bunch of different example essays and framework material. So I assign readings about the craft of the personal essay and example essays. We discuss genre conventions, readerly expectations that are set by those conventions, and techniques that are used in the model essays that the students could use in their own writing. And I do the same again to help students learn about nature writing. But I don't want students to engage in what Gessner calls nature writing by the numbers. It's kind of like paint by number, right? I don't want them to produce something that is cliched. I want it to be more personal and more philosophical. As a result, I draw upon some definitions of the genre of nature writing, including 4 categories that provide a framework for my students to use when planning their own essays. And these are the 4 categories up there. I provide them with material that defines the 4 categories, and then we look at example essays from each of the 4 categories. So I want them to be intentional. I want the students to be intentional in their writing. I want them to purposely choose one of these types in which their own writing will fit categorically. So if you don't mind, I'll share 2 excerpts from student work. They're not terribly long, but they're also not short. So the first is it really gone? I grew up on a farm in the little town of Girard, Pennsylvania, surrounded by animals and nature with 4 sisters and brothers. We played in the dirt and collected bugs, laughed and giggled. We ran through the surrounding fields and trails, climbed trees, and looked out over the land. It was pure, it was clean. We were free, and then it all changed. The trucks began to dig. They took away loads of dirt and brought back twice as much equipment. It was bad enough that most of the trees were gone or pushed over, but now all that remained were gigantic holes packed with machinery. These machines were said to be good, were supposed to make money, but they were toxic. The machines pushed out natural gas from these huge holes. This fracking became so harmful to animals, the animals migrated. The deer, with nowhere to go, began to run onto the roads. The squirrels, rabbits, rodents, and insects, with no places to hide, fought for living spaces and started to enter people's houses. The raccoons, foxes, and hawks, with no prey to feed on, began to attack pets. But the trucks didn't care. There was more to their essay, but the second essay is The Weight of Death and Life. After school, I walked homeward along my usual path, my eyes on the ground. About halfway, I cut across a vacant lot full of overgrown vegetation, littered trash, and shadows from the nearby trees, on the other side of which is a brown fence, and beyond that, my house. In the middle of the lot, in the grass, I saw a black splotch with a white streak. My eyes widened, my mind started to race, and I felt anxious. It was a skunk. I had cut through here hundreds of times, but this was the first time seeing this creature. Unmoving, it laid there. And there were no signs that it was preparing to spray me, run at me, run from me, or even move. I was perplexed. With curiosity getting the best of me, I circled around, keeping my distance. Focusing on the creature's body, I realized it was injured. The mystery was solved. The skunk wasn't moving because it couldn't. For a second, I felt relieved. And then I realized the animal in front of me was in pain. My relief was replaced by pity. Defenseless, it sat there, probably hoping that the large animal in front of it wasn't going to attack. Well, I knew it was only a matter of time before it died. I felt sorry for it. Scanning the area, I saw some sort of green fruit hanging on a nearby tree. I grabbed the pear-like fruit and set it next to him. I thought to myself, this animal should be out in the wild, foraging, living. Yet it somehow ended up in the middle of the city. The nearest forest was miles away, so how could it have gotten here? How many times did it risk death to cross roads and highways? Perhaps it was struck by a car just hours ago and barely managed to limp its way here, victim of unknowingly walking into the death trap that is human civilization. I looked one last time at the skunk, and then towards my destination, and continued my journey home. So those are two examples of some of the work that the students produce. They're longer pieces than that, so these were just excerpts. And you don't really kind of get the full effect of their essays, but hopefully you got a taste of what they're doing. So to sum up, this memoir unit begins the course by asking students to look inward to understand the self and their relationship to the natural world, by asking them to write a personal narrative that fits into the genre of nature writing. Our second unit is a rhetorical analysis unit, and they shift from self-reflection to the examination of other people's arguments about human responsibility toward nature. We begin by reading a classic, Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, which presents a story about the tensions between the citizens' need to earn a living, stewardship of the environment and animal habits, and the consequences of industrial exploitation of natural resources. We also read a companion essay that reflects on the prescience and continued relevance of the Lorax today. It's been about 50 years since it was first published. And these two readings help us to differentiate between the indirect arguments made in fiction or literature and the more direct arguments made in opinion articles. And that's important because we are actually going to be analyzing these opinion pieces. And so we read and discuss 5 opinion essays, identifying the rhetorical features and strategies used in each one. The students need to choose one of these articles to write about in their rhetorical analysis essays. These articles, as you can see, are written by a range of experts, scholars, and activists. So in their rhetorical analysis papers, they are analyzing these articles both for rhetorical strategies and effectiveness for its implied primary and secondary audiences. As they study those example essays, they pay particular attention to the kairos of each one. That is to say, they consider the motivating occasion and timing of the essay's publication, as well as the larger public conversation that each writer was contributing to. And I really want my students to conceive of themselves as contributing to a larger public conversation when they write about their own environmental issues in the subsequent 2 projects, the research report and the policy proposal. And so having them make the realization that what we're all doing is participating in these public conversations, right, is really important. I connect that also to what we do as scholars, right? We're always participating in a larger conversation, and we frame our arguments in relation to what other scholars have said. It's something that students actually don't really comprehend, right? And that for us as scholars, that's what makes our work relevant to other people, right? And so getting the undergrads to understand that and make that evolution in their own writing is really, really important. So the next 2 units engage students in a pair of linked writing projects tackling a single environmental issue within a local context. So the first one, Unit 3, is this research report. They work together in a group to do the research and write the report. In the second one, they are building on that research, but they work individually to write a policy proposal recommending a specific solution to the problem that they researched, right? Thereby making a persuasive argument that contributes to that larger public conversation. So the research report, I have them get into groups of 3 or 4. They can choose their own topic, although I give them a list of topics that I'm suggesting they pursue. The purpose in writing the report is to help a particular audience better understand an environmental issue. And so to accomplish this, they read what others have to say about the topic, synthesize those sources, and then thoughtfully engage with them in order to explain the issue to that target audience. And the target audience, what I want them to do is kind of imagine themselves in a particular scenario, right? I want them to imagine that they're interns and working for, say, the Erie County Conservation District or the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection or some NPO or NGO that works on the environmental issue that they chose. And so as interns, their job is to prepare this research report on that issue so that the directors of that organization can make informed decisions about upcoming legislation or perhaps propose alternative legislation. So I tell students that when they write this report, they're effectively saying to their audience, I have information for you about this environmental issue and I can help you understand it better. Consequently, their audience will expect to gain both that new factual knowledge and a deeper understanding of the issue, especially its local impact. 3 student examples that they're working on this semester. One is the presence of the round goby and zebra mussels in Lake Erie. Another is evaluating the potential of nuclear power as a source of clean energy. And a third is plastic waste's role in environmental problems around Lake Erie. So, when planning their reports, I encourage them to incorporate multiple strategies of development, including contrasting the opinions of various experts, legislators, business leaders, and other citizens. I also instruct them to keep notes on any solutions they read about or think of, because they will write about those in policy proposal, which is the final writing project of the course. So here they're, again, recommending solutions, and they act as citizens, right, using research and writing skills to actually try to affect change in the world. So some of the considerations I want them to engage with, this is an exhaustive list, but this is the main big ones that I want them to be thinking about, including item 8, what are some potential unintended consequences of your solution? I think it's something that often gets overlooked. So some student projects, these are 4 examples, solving the problem of factory farming's detrimental effects on the environment. These are from last year, not the current year, because the current year students haven't written these yet, but from last year. Helping poor communities that are suffering from environmental injustice get relief. Eliminating food deserts in Erie. And making fracking cleaner and safer. So to kind of wrap up, the course's journey, I think, is really outlined well in this slide. It begins with introspection, it travels through analysis and research, and it ends in a form of public action. And all the while, students are building skills in writing, rhetoric, language, and literacy, while also gaining knowledge about environmental issues. The feedback from students about the course has been fairly positive. I haven't been doing it for very long, so I don't have a lot of data on that. But most students have been reporting fairly high motivation and engagement with the course material and through their assignments, reflections, and course evaluations. These are kind of the big questions that we've been asking in each of the 4 units. So let me skip ahead to a couple slides here. This is just kind of extra because I have a little bit of extra time here. The previous semester I ran this course, I also had them watch a couple of movies and write an analysis of the movies and the message of the movies. So one was Princess Mononoke. If you haven't seen this, I highly recommend it. Make a note of it. Seriously, it's really good. Also, watch it in subtitles. Don't watch it with the English dub. Terrible to watch dubbed version of Japanese animated films. And the second film is Beasts of the Southern Wild. Came out in 2012. Highly recommend this one also if you haven't seen it. It's kind of a post-Katrina film. It's magical realism. It's super good. Yeah. So. Yep. You guys have any questions?
Thinking away from implicit bias and self-centered. So I like the self-reflection.
Cool, thank you. Yes?
I think it's great to have like a theme and to have students, because it was one of the teaching science students, they're often struggling and kind of, they're taking English comp for academia, but it's not like what we're trying to train them to do as science technical writing. And so sometimes there's a bit of disconnect. So I can see really having that thematic style, it's really, really great for them. Do you connect with like other like science faculty that are studying these issues and bring them in to talk about some of these things, or do students go to other people? Like, do they get a chance to like experience that with a person or get out and, connect in those ways?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things I want to do next year.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do it yet. I came very close this year. I was so close to making that happen, and I couldn't. It was too late to like schedule weren't working out. And I was like, okay, I won't do it this year, but next time, that is definitely something that I want to make sure that kind of happens. And so, please email me if you have thoughts or ideas. One and then two.
I was going to say, consider us, Russ Cal State Park, the educators. A lot of stuff that you saw there, I mean, the types of issues that we have on this peninsula, taking the students into seeing actively what we're doing with the invasive species and all that kind of stuff. There's so many opportunities out here on the peninsula for that really mind-provoking type of writing.
Yeah, I would love to. I really enjoyed the previous presentation as well. I would love to make an opportunity in the course for students to come out here and see some of this, see what an algae bloom is, look at what the invasive species actually are doing. Right. I'd love to kind of see. I would like to have them have that kind of experiential component to it. So yeah, there's definitely ways in which your ideas I want to try to kind of incorporate. So yes, send me some email if you have thoughts or resources or contact people that I should get in touch with.
I'd like to know about your backgrounds and what was your personal motivation and interest in teaching this course?
So my background.
Are you a biologist?
No, I'm mostly a literary studies person. Long ago, I trained as a high school English teacher and did an MAT at Tufts before eventually doing another master's and PhD at IU. And part of my pedagogical approach when I was doing my MAT was kind of more Freirean pedagogy and kind of thinking about social justice issues and ways in which my students needed to kind of see themselves as citizens, and kind of this philosophy that democracy is not a spectator sport, right? That we want democracy to succeed, we have to break out of the kinds of socialization that the schooling system inculcates in us from when we're children, right? It's like we don't live in our institutions aren't democratic, like other than voting for elected officials, right? The rest of our other institutions, like the school, it's not a democratic institution. So you're not socialized to think that way, to be activist in that way, right? And it's taken a long time for me to get to a point in my career where I can, have control over my curriculum, which I do now. And so I'm able to actually kind of create courses that provide those opportunities for students and kind of help to do that. So that's kind of my own thinking and impetus for this.
I was going to ask, which problems do you hear most written about, or written about most often, or which topics in general do you hear about?
Yes, this is so new. I don't have a lot, I just have 2 semesters to the current semester and the one before to go on. But for whatever reason, this year, invasive species are like the hot topic. They're just like, the students are all about the round goby and zebra mussels, and I forget, there's another purple something or other. Yeah, so the students are just like,
We have them all here.
I know. So the students are just like, they're hot on that, and then but the previous semester was like, you saw the I kind of posted up there what they had. There was a lot more variety last year. I don't know why, but yeah.
I was going to say, do they struggle with the solution part of the writing, like coming I mean, once you dive into a problem, sometimes you might start focused, but it grows, and then finding a solution can be difficult. Do they struggle with that, or do they come up with pretty creative solutions?
Yeah, so last time, I flipped the group project and the individual project. So last time they did a group policy proposal. And
That'd be harder.
yeah, I don't know, it was like having them they were having trouble agreeing on solutions, and like, it was, so that's why I flipped it this time. So they did the group project together, which actually has another knock-on benefit, because you know how hard it is to find sources and time-consuming to actually like do that research and all that reading and put together an annotated bibliography and like a synthesis graphic organizer to show how they all relate to each other, right, before you actually can like start writing your paper. So that takes a lot of time, and so I think the other benefit of having the research project be group-based is that it kind of cuts down, right, you're doing a little bit of crowdsourcing there, so it cuts down on time there, but then they get to like, well, I want to, my solution is this, right? It's like, okay, it's your solution, you go run with that. So like, I don't know what the outcome of that's going to be this semester. Like, hopefully the solutions will be more focused, and we'll see. That they haven't been written yet. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can I get a picture with you and Dr. Schnars and my students?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Picture that didn't happen. All right.
Yeah, thank you all very much. Really enjoyed your questions. Appreciate it.
You can go to the next one. What's that? You can go to the next one. I didn't, where do I go to this one?
Can I use this?
Yes, back and forth and pointer. Do you ever feel like everyone's waiting for you? Just kidding. You're good. All right, moving right along, we have Sarah Skelton. She's here to talk about what do we do with the gifted few and the whole rest of her title.
All right, as Holly said, I'm Sarah Skelton from Iroquois. So I don't know how familiar you are with gifted education. I just thought I would give a brief overview. I've been in gifted ed for 14 years. I've been working at Iroquois for the last 9 years, and I've been working with Jeanette in the RSC since I arrived at Iroquois. And I really wanted to talk today about how the immersive education piece that we put together here with the RSC has really benefited our gifted students. And as you can see, I mean, gifted, you may have been in the gifted program. You know, you may know a lot about gifted students, maybe not. But it's only like 3 to 5% of your population. It's about 3% of Iroquois. We have anywhere between like 35 and 45 students each year, just depending. So, you know, obviously the title was what to do with the gifted few, and, you know, there aren't a lot of opportunities for our gifted students, and that's why this is so important. And I really want to touch base on some of the things that we've done here with the RSC and how it has benefited our students. When you are identified, there's multiple measures, and then once you are identified, you have a GIEP. So this individual education plan is for each student, and it's based off of acceleration and enrichment. And the enrichment piece is really what I want to talk about today. So what does enrichment look like? It's defined here, obviously, by the state, right? In-depth learning experiences that provide interaction with new ideas, skills, and topics. But what does it look like? That's like the immersive learning, the hands-on, those real-world, authentic skills. And that's what Jeanette and I have really planned over the years for our gifted students, to provide some of these enrichment opportunities that are not given in the regular ed classroom. As a gifted teacher, I joke with teachers because I say, the kids aren't just gifted when they come to me for 45 minutes a day, right? They're gifted all the time. So, what can we do to provide these students, with those opportunities? So a lot of the acceleration happens within the classroom. The enrichment is what the part of the GIP that I try to take care of. So I want to share some of the enrichment pieces that the RSC has provided. And honestly, I can't even say enough great things about the RSC and about Jeanette and her whole team, because it really is such a valuable experience, and my students look forward to all of the things that we do here with the RSC. And I don't think my students, there's honestly, when you have a GIP, you have one until you graduate. There are students that have literally said, like, they stayed in the district because of this program. Not because of me necessarily, but because what the RSC has been able to provide our students. And they feel like there's something for them. We do so much for the lower end, and, not by fault, they just need a lot of help. But what do we do for our gifted students? So one of the things that we've done in the past are Stewart Action Projects, and Jeanette has been really influential. One year, my students started a recycling bag project. This was elementary, so 3rd through 6th grade. And they realized that nobody was recycling plastic bags in our district, so they started a new initiative. And they ended up recycling over 80,000 bags. And then, as a result, earning the Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence. So all these young elementary kids went to the Capitol, they got to do a presentation, and they earned this nice award. But what a cool experience that they're going to remember forever. Just something that was not... they weren't able to do in the regular classroom. So stuff like that is really what makes this program so meaningful. A couple of the events that Jeanette and her team put on for all the students in the gifted program, and that's for everybody that's members of the consortium. And yesterday at the board meeting, you saw that, we are really growing, or I say that, but the RSC is really growing in terms of the membership, and the school districts, I think there's 10 of them now. So we bring all the gifted kids from all over Erie County to come here for different events, and it is really cool. So, I might only have 10 or 12 kids that I work with, but then I bring them here and there's 100 of them. And if you're gifted, you know that there's something different about being in a room full of other gifted kids. It's different. It's spectacular. It's amazing. So really, these events give those kids an opportunity to fit in a sense. So the problem-solving hackathon is one of the students' go-tos every year. They really enjoy this. So the students are given a problem, a real-world problem, a relevant problem here in our community, and they have to come up with a creative solution. And I know we are touching base on, what were some of the problems you see? Well, this is a student's first tap at that, right? And this starts in elementary. So there's a hackathon for elementary all the way through high school. And the students work together to come up with, a problem to the solution. And everything is time. So they don't have, weeks to come up with a probable solution. They only have an hour. And then they develop a plan, and they do a presentation in front of a panel of judges. And it's awesome what these kids come up with. It really is. So they're just working on those, creative thinking, those problem-solving skills that, once again, as teachers, we want to implement every day in the classroom, but they're so hard to tap into when there's such, a competitive curriculum to get to. This, hands down, the favorite of them all, right? And I know we see a lot of familiar faces here. They were all dressed up. They get into the part, but the escape room, this is awesome. So it takes that concept of the escape room, right? And the students have to solve all these different scientific investigations to solve the mystery. It's like a murder mystery. And they work together to solve these forensic problems. And I know Jeanette initially worked with the Mercyhurst University, the forensic team. So they are really the real world applicable problems that they would see in a forensic scene. So it's cool, the kids get to come here and they have to try to solve the mystery. At the end, they have to crack the riddle, and then they get a code where what breaks them out of the box, right? So it takes the escape room concept, but applying those real world skills. Integrating the teamwork, the problem solving, the hands-on critical thinking, all of which are really important for gifted students, something that the students really enjoy, and again, provides that enrichment piece that cannot always be provided in the classroom. So thank you to all my actors in here that really get into it, because it's really awesome every year. And this year it's at the Erie Art Museum. So how cool is that? Just really a different environment. New this year, and I know Jeanette talked about it at the board meeting, the eco school program. So my students are going to start to conduct several audits of the school to find out areas basically where we need to become more eco-friendly. And they're going to conduct these audits themselves, and then they're going to identify areas for improvement and then hopefully implement some changes within our school. So again, with the support of the RSE, my students are able to make that direct impact in the school, do something that, again, like their science classes aren't able to tap into. So it's really cool that we have this opportunity to work with such professionals in the field and then can provide our students with an opportunity that they're going to remember. And then hopefully we can go on to be a green ribbon school, because who doesn't want that kind of recognition, right? Tell that to the superintendent and they're like all over it. So one of the biggest pieces that I want to talk about is the college prep workshop series. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we really couldn't put this together, because this workshop really is designed for students to be together and to have that one-on-one, that face-to-face interaction. So, you know, some of the things that we just heard in the English composition class that actually we would love to talk to you about helping us with this. Because our students, not everyone goes to college, we know that, right? But I would say probably 90% of my gifted kids are going to college, post-secondary education. We need to prepare them better. There's just not enough time in the high school for guidance counselors to do that. The career classes can't dive into enough to help these students. My gifted kids are really good in a lot of different areas, and a lot of them struggle with figuring out what they want to do. They're told by mom, dad, grandma, like to do all these different things because they have so many strengths. So what are they supposed to do? So Jeanette and I thought, wow, if we can design some type of workshop to really help prepare these students, provide them with some more career exploration, more specifically, you know, just to help them understand what the expectations are at the college level. So the idea is for students 7 through 12, that's a big gap, right? So all the different age groups have specific activities designed for them, right? Because what a 7th and 8th grader is thinking is certainly different than 11th and 12th graders. So we bring all these gifted kids. At one time we had like 90 some kids here from all over Erie County, and we broke them up according to age group. And we started to design activities that would be appropriate for them to think about college and career readiness. So by the end of their, you know, the year or subsequent years, right, we want them to participate in multiple years. The idea is that they're going to have this portfolio. So it's going to start that resume, you know, talk about cover letters, applications, essays, and then they're ready for that step. Because often enough, like our kids are just not ready, and they're scrambling senior year to get them ready. And then everybody, you know, is trying to get those letters of recommendations out to their teachers. And so we're just trying to start this process earlier. And a couple of the examples of the things that have happened in the past, because we ran this for several years before COVID, you know, included bringing in some college professors to talk about what their class is like. You know, these kids, if they can't do or take a dual enrollment class, they just don't know what that college setting is like. And unfortunately, not everybody has that opportunity. They can't pay to go to the class. So we would bring in some professors to talk about what to expect. One of the favorites, we brought in the students, the freshmen, and sat them down at round tables and just had discussions with the high school students, like, hey, if I was in your seat, this is what I wish I knew back then, right? Or if I'm preparing for a career in this, make sure you take this class. So just getting that, you know, feedback from students that are actually sitting in those college classes now, that was really helpful. But we did a lot of, you know, building those resumes, working with college professors, you know, the introduction to the application, because once again, you know, that's really not taught. The guidance counselors, there's 2 of them for like 700 or 800 kids in our building. There's never enough time to go through this process. And as much as I say I like help my kids, this opportunity, this workshop series really helped our students prepare for college. And so Jeanette and I were working again this year and trying to kind of bring that back to design new activities. So we ran this for 4 years and we never had the same activity. So that was the idea, right? Because these kids that are in 7th or 8th grade coming for the first time and they want to participate every year, we're not going to give them something that they've already done. So this was just so important for them. So, you know, why is this important for gifted kids? Like I said, you know, it provides them with that opportunity that they don't get in the classroom. And, you know, it saved some of my gifted kids. Like, it's the reason they stayed at Iroquois. these types of, immersive learning, hands-on opportunities that have been provided through the RSC, honestly, it's what makes our program so strong. So, I guess to sum everything up, I'm just so appreciative of what the RSC has provided and how grateful I am that my students get to experience the things that we do here. And it's not even just, the things that I talked about today, but my students come every single month here. And Jeanette and her team organize some phenomenal activities. I've been here 9 years. We come every month. We've never done the same thing. And so sometimes it's funny because I'm like, yeah, every month I'm going to Trek, and the kids are like, or the parents, what, you go there every single month? And even the teachers are so naive, and they're like, you guys go there, you must do the same thing. And I'm thinking, no, you have no idea. These kids do so many cool things, and it's the highlight of their month, of their year, and they go home and talk about it to their parents and, to their relatives, and they're so excited about what they learn, and it's all hands-on. It's all that authentic, real-world skills that we cannot give them in the classroom. So, any questions? I know it's just kind of a lot of information, but really it's about the experience, and I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm so grateful for the RSC and to everybody else that's part of the team and help put all these awesome experiences together. And as the RSC continues to grow, I know it's just going to get better. So thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted to say, since I've had the opportunity to work with you and your students, it's also very rewarding for us, for the educators. Being able to provide those opportunities, but to see that, that reaction,
right,
and just how much they're really immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we do what we do.
Right, absolutely.
And it's awesome, to be able to see that inspire those kids, and they inspire us as well as educators. So,
well, thank you. I'm so glad. It always kind of breaks my heart when I have the other kids, like my non-gifted kids that I see in the hallways, and they're like, "Oh, Mrs. Gilton, I really want to come with you on that field trip," and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I could provide it for everybody," because they have just so much fun, and the kids come back and there's just so much to talk about. They get so excited about learning and about coming here. And that's what education is about. And so much of that has been stripped from the curriculum because, the Common Core is very intense and teachers have so much on their plate that they cannot do all of this stuff that the RSC is able to provide. So just to give that opportunity to the students is really what it's all about. So thank you for your feedback. Yes.
I think that college prep is so great because I teach first semester freshmen coming in, and we were just actually talking about the drive here that one of the things that happens is I don't worry so much about the students that have struggled and know how to keep fighting for it, so if they hit a wall, they'll be okay. But the students I actually worry the most about is the ones who just cruise through high school and never have to crack
Study,
never do anything.
Right.
And those are the ones that are like in my office crying and upset because they don't know what to do.
Right.
They're so lost, they have no idea. And eventually they get there, but the ones I worry about are those that just
Absolutely.
stumble and have never had a
Absolutely.
up.
And there's a crazy statistic about gifted kids in college. I mean, a lot of them transfer, okay, because they'll drop out or they just don't know if that's the right fit. They change majors like a dozen times, right? And so they really struggle to kind of find, what works for them. And you're right, like a lot of them have never had a struggle before or never faced adversity and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, so it's just something we see a lot in terms of like the students that I'm working with,
Sure.
trying to give them up to speed. So it's great to see that you guys can give them that exposure, and having them talk to students is one of the best things so they can get like that real world experience. I was actually thinking like one thing that might be fun is if people already have like research students that have posters, to have students come, have the college students come and show off their research projects and things that they're doing that are their own independent, cool projects. That's the way that the students can then see, hey, this is what you can do, right? These are things that the students generated and came up with, and then the college students get to show off a little bit and practice presentations. But it's students talking to students.
Exactly. And I could say the same thing to them, but guess what? Because a student came in and can talk on their level, they're going to listen to that student, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that's really important. I know Jeanette and I have talked multiple times. We said that roundtable discussion, the kids were so into it. Yes, and it didn't matter. And we actually included a lot of the younger kids too, and they were all into it, right? They left there like, oh my gosh, I got to make sure I do this. And they were like taking notes, and it was so cute. I'm like, you don't even take notes in your class. Oh my gosh.
And Courtney, I was teaching at Barron before a long time ago, that was one of the things I noticed is those freshman students that always were straight A's in high school, they were the ones that really struggled the most. And so that's what kind of fueled that. Let's bring in an English professor, math professor, and science. And they went over the syllabus and said, this is what it looks like, and you're going to be graded on 4 exams, and that's it. And this, we go over a chapter a day, so be ready, and this is how fast. And so hopefully that they had an idea, maybe just a glimpse, that before they go to college, it's going to be intense because they didn't have to crack the book. They could listen in class and come in and take the test the next day and not study, you know, so we really trying to get to that point.
So important, and even like, you know, they're taking chemistry, and chemistry is more like problem-based, so it's more structured, right? And so you need to know these 5 ways of solving this problem. Great, done, right? But then when you get to conceptual ecology, community interactions, it's like, I don't know how to study this. I have no idea how to approach this. So I spent a lot of time about just like basic study habits, how to interact with it in a way that isn't just reading in it, because that's all they used to have to do, and that was enough. But there's a lot of these conversations around study habits for students who have always been straight A's and they're just struggling. So we try to work with that, but it would be so great to have more of that before they get there.
Right.
It's not such a shock.
Right. Well, Jeanette has raised several gifted kids herself, so that's really where it all stemmed from. Like, hey, I have to deal with this. Like, I'm going through this, and she's living it, and it's different, right? I know. So, and my heart goes out to parents that have gifted kids because, you know, as amazing as it is, it's also such a challenge, and they have so many intensities, and they don't know how to navigate a lot of challenging things. So, you know, we try to bring to light some of those things, and like, hey, that's normal, that's okay, but here's how you deal with it. So, yeah, thank you for your feedback. And if anybody has any ideas about what to do, because Jeanette and I are still planning this college prep workshop for this year, let me know. I'm your girl. Thank you.
Oh, where am I? This one?
No.
It just said right.
Okay, yeah, okay, the
Okay.
presentation, yeah. Those are my
Okay.
videos that
Oh,
I
gotcha.
embedded within the-
Okay. I don't want to, so I can start you, right?
I hope.
Should be able to.
All right, well, moving right along, we have our last presentation. I'll wait. We've got a couple people coming and going. Is everybody ready? Are you ready?
I know you guys have some really cool things.
All right, we have our last presentation of this session. We have Ray Bierbauer and Brad Wool, and they're going to present Behind the Lens, Bringing Nature into Your Living Room.
Yeah, so we're going to show you guys what we've kind of done over the last 2 years when, well, a little more than 2 years when chaos broke out, and how we've evolved to, we're educators, we're used to seeing thousands of kids in April, May, and as we know, back in March of 2020, it all came to a screeching halt, and we needed stuff to do, so we started to shift our gears, so we'll tell that story today. So
Yeah, it's kind of, COVID, it kind of forced us to sort of do a evolution of kind of our entire methodology of teaching. We're always in the field hands-on, and we're trying to figure out how can we still be hands-on but through the screen.
Yeah. So before the pandemic, we were already as a team talking about trying to prepare some virtual pre-lessons. So when school groups do come out here and visit us, we can kind of hit the ground and go running a little bit faster. Sometimes we have as little as an hour to maybe an hour and a half with these students. So to try to get rid of all that introductory stuff was great. So we were already working on some of these developed pre-lessons where we could either do it through a computer screen, or the thought mainly, I think at the time, was going to the school, one of us, and doing a brief presentation there as well. So March 17th then, we came to a screeching halt here. We came in, cleared out all of our stuff, dumped all the fish that were in the aqua lab, and took home our computers and books, and there we were. And we worked from home, and at that time, we were all assigned some of our lessons that we currently offer to make them a virtual and then get the pre-lessons on them. And eventually they evolved into just a virtual overall lesson as well. So We were then brought back to full-time staff on May 4th, but as I said, nobody was doing anything together. So we were left to cleaning up the park that everybody was abusing and working a desk here because the seasonal staff was not brought back until in October-ish or so.
Several dump truck loads of trash just on roadside for the first week.
Yeah.
When we came back is what we picked up. It was the most I've ever seen on this peninsula.
So during that time, though, we continued to work and think about what we want to do. And our first virtual presentation we did on September 16th. And the management team here gave us room 110, which at the end here, if anybody wants to go check it out, see our gear and stuff, you're welcome to. Brian and I can take you over there. And at that time, the state was working with Skype. So, and this is something new that with all these different platforms and stuff. So and basically our presentations were through the webcam that was on our computer and a PowerPoint. And that was about it. We also did not do any in-person until October 2020, and even then it was very small numbers and stuff. So schools were not coming out here. We were just doing like hikes and things like that that were non-contact and things. So, and then Brian and I we brought in my personal handy cam, a little thing that fit in my hand, because I wanted to try to share. We got all these mounts and great things to share on the screen as well, and kind of go live a little bit. I don't like staring at a PowerPoint talking all the time. I like a little bit more action. So we brought that in, and then that's when we put in our request to get an actual nice camcorder. And Eric was a big help on a lot of the equipment that we have here. So we got that in. There's the first setup that we had. Emily said I could share this. So again, just trying to work with that little handy cam and, get by ourselves often because, again, it was early in this whole craziness and working from that. And then we had to learn all those different platforms that were out there, and every one of them seemed to have their own little glitch or stumble around with not making it easy to switch from a PowerPoint to a camera to pictures and stuff. Zoom has been, I think, I never heard of Zoom until the pandemic, and that just blew up everywhere. Google Classroom was another one. My Grace was 7 at the time, taught me how to use that, so I appreciated her.
We learned a lot from our children.
Yes. And we have transitioned to Teams now primarily, and I've also had some experience with Adobe Connect and stuff. So we've gotten into these, but the foundation here has bought all the educators here a Zoom account, so we can do Zoom, and some of us choose to still just run with Teams, and that seems to work fine as well. So it's whatever you want to use on that sense. And then our first regular virtual program, John Lasco's, continues to this day. It's not every Friday like it was, but he goes from 1 to 2, and he delivers a virtual lesson, and he has, I think, about 100 people that are on his list now that he sends his links out to. Many of them are like homeschool people, and these are folks from all over the country and Canada. And that's one thing with our virtual programming now, we are reaching so broad. We have a lot of folks from out of town and stuff that tune into our lessons, and then they might come up here as I get into what Brian and I have created. But it's been a good way to kind of continue that virtual connection for a lot of these people that aren't able to come here for a physical in-person program.
That was really the positive outcome that I don't think we were ready for. It was a pleasant surprise. The amount of folks, and using John as an example, and some of our other educators as well, but some of their audience members, John had one family that has been to every single one of his virtual programs from the very beginning, and they still have not missed one. And I had the opportunity, we can be special guests on John's show, and so we were doing some special stuff, some different things, and just seeing how she interacts it's really bringing light to their environment because this particular case, this girl is suffering from a certain disease. It really doesn't allow her to go outside, and especially during COVID, they were really limited, really shut down on what they could do. So this was really very much a thing of enlightenment for them, and they look forward to it every Friday. And they still do with John. So it's really cool, very positive outcome, and led to a lot of our other stuff that we kind of started to develop and get into.
Yeah. So we got our camcorder and we're using that for live presentations, but as you can imagine, as we rolled into the school year of 2021 in the spring, I think we were doing up to 4 school lessons a day virtually delivering. So the camcorder that we had, one, was tied up there. Brian and I wanted to use it to go out on the park and film stuff and everything because we like to incorporate this into our programming that we're doing and everything. So, and we just had a little one, you know. It was nice at the time, but it wasn't doing what we want. We need Zoom and stuff because as anybody knows with wildlife, they don't come up close for you to give you that opportunity. So we got a second camcorder from the foundation, and then one of our board members, Joe Fott, had a studio, I guess, at his home or someplace, and he dropped off all this stuff for us too. And that's when Brian and I kind of came up with our next great idea is our virtual Wildlife Wednesdays. So currently we do it the first Wednesday of every month. We share the experiences that him and I have on the park with the critters. And we'll go through the different ways that we collect all this. And what our goal is to try to show people what happened on the park, but also prepare them for what could be coming up, such as migrations and stuff. And the biggest thing I think him and I experienced this summer, we were out filming after we did this a couple days earlier, and this lady walked up to us, asked us who we were, and you know we're kind of recognizable. And sure enough, she came up from Pittsburgh, came all the way from Pittsburgh to see the warbler migration, and it was because of her experience through our programming that she came up for that. So it was really cool. We started on April 7th. We were using mounts and a live camera. Now it is pretty much all video and photographs that we capture. And I'll let Brian start on the camera trap. So I think most everybody knows what a camera trap is. So Brian's new favorite story.
Well, storytelling, bringing these, I've always been just real, I like teaching real things. And this Wildlife Wednesday gives us this opportunity when we're going out and doing this filming. We're running into all these crazy things that are happening to us while we're doing this. And so the day we check the camera, you can see on that photograph Ray's wonderful smile. But on the actual camera, there's a gray tree frog attached to the right-hand side. Well, before this, he took the main cover off of the camera, and he saw this really cool beetle on the edge of the camera.
And I stood on this side of the camera the whole time.
So I had the other camera on me, and I go up and I'm taking pictures of the beetle. We never noticed this gray tree frog. So I turn around and I start walking away, and all of a sudden I hear, ah! And I turn around. And I start rolling. I am dying because he reached up to remove the camera and he touched something cold and squishy. He wasn't expecting that. He touched the great tree frog and he jumped. I turned around. So when I got a picture, him and I are both laughing and rolling. It was like,
meanwhile, this camera's taking a shot every 20 seconds.
So we have the whole series of me actually going right up and you can see my face. I'm just rolling. I'm tearing out and laughing. It's so much fun. So,
yeah.
But as we share that, when we shared that whole story, I guess that has really been the power of the virtual programming. And I have to admit in the beginning, I didn't think virtual was going to be as powerful as we could do something on the park. But I am now a complete advocate of that. It is just as important, as valuable, and as potent as it is with doing first-person stuff on the park. I've really kind of fallen in love with it.
So the cameras were one of our main sources of videos and stuff, and pictures primarily. This one, I can get anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 photos I'm going through at a time because it captures every movement. And this one was right on one of our trails, so it captured a lot. But what I also like is someone will catch series events. This little property over here, Chocolates, Treks Out Campus. There's so much wildlife over there, it is unreal. And this was just over along the edge. And we had this guy show up one day with this, and Brian and I are going through this and oh, he's got something in his mouth. This was in February, so probably a deer antler. Yeah. So okay, takes it over, kind of digs a little hole there, and then leaves, but you can see it sticking out right there.
So we're like, yes, we're going to go right there and expect to see exactly what that fox put there.
So that's 9:53 on the 11th. So around noon, somebody else visits. And the next photo is what I absolutely love.
Looks at the camera.
I'll say, nope, I'm not going to get it. picks it up, and off he goes with it down the trail. So that's what I love. And we get so many of these actual like interval shots of animals doing things that we shared. It's really cool to have those stories to go along with this.
So we never did find that possible animal.
No, so down, you can see it in his mouth there. Down the trail he goes, and it's gone. So, and then of course cell phones. Not him. Me.
I don't have a cell phone.
He doesn't have a cell phone. So whenever I'm out, we were out doing trail work early on, running a weed eater, and I come across this thing. So thank God I saw it before the blades made any contact. But this little fawn was freshly born. It was still wet that morning. So really cool to see that out there. And these photos were like real early on when we did this. And then this is a northern red salamander.
And this is the one that got Mark excited.
Yeah. This is the first documented photo of one of these in this PARS unit over by Erie Bluff State Park where we were at. And we found this with our group of trail workers that we're doing. So things like this, trying to share, showing things and documenting these things as well has kind of been a sidebar project with all this. And then our camcorder. This is the stuff that I've kind of gotten into and things that Brian and I get lucky enough. Eric? Okay, there we go. That's coming back. Okay. So we get fortunate. We do our park lap. That's what him and I kind of decompress and get out on the park for a little bit. And we always take the camera with us. And you never know what you're going to see. So we were fortunate enough to capture this. We had the video when he initially caught it and just beat it on the log. And then this is the part where he eats it, and unfortunately the log there is in the way to see the whole process. But here it goes. You'll see his beak stick up over the log in a moment.
And we started to incorporate a lot of this even with our school programming.
There's
So, we have a pond lesson, and so, showing kids, the food chain. This is the food chain right here.
Yeah. So
That's an
some
act.
like it, some don't.
Yeah, you get a lot of reactions. Ew, gross.
Okay.
But of course, with Prescout too, the natural geology, the sand replenishment. There's a lot of topics, a lot of conversations, and different components to our programs, and also with the general public, we can capture this material all season long, and being able to talk and promote and answer questions on ice dunes, the formation. We always have people walking on the ice dunes in the wintertime. Capturing videos like this, there's so many applications to this. Being able to show the real force of what's going on in that early wintry January when the ridge started to form, and how that spray and mist formed those ice dunes and all those crevices and hollow nature. You can actually show them. This is why we don't walk on these. It's a hazard. So.
Okay, we're going to try to speed through. And then our most recent capture.
And a lot of times too,
I don't want to clip too much here.
We're able to get some of this footage.
There we go.
During times when some people aren't able to come out and view the park, like in the wintertime or at night. A lot of us don't see what happens at night on the peninsula.
So most of our wildlife has transitioned to being at 10 o'clock to about 4 in the morning when the park is closed. That's when it's moving around and stuff. So this was one of our, this was captured October 4th. So our dates are flipped on the camera. But this is one of the big guys that we have on the park this year. So it's something, Brian and I are both hunters, so we like seeing this kind of stuff and getting it out here and documenting. It's amazing how these bucks, how many we can document on the park, and none of them will get harvested with all the hunters out here. That's what I find amazing, how many big bucks are out here, but they all disappear. And then they show up back in January and February when hunting season's over. So
a lot of them actually move up here into the Chicolet property while the hunt's going on down there. Yeah.
Then in July, we got smart, I guess, and got a DSLR camera. And I'm a bio major, he's park and rec major. I'd never had any experience in this kind of stuff, and I am hooked on the camera now. That's probably my favorite thing to use. I feel we can capture more stuff faster because of the speed. I can get it in frame and everything, and I can just blast away and then peel through all the photos and stuff. Here's a picture of Bryzone that we found this year out on the pontoon boat. Screech owl, so I've been able to document every species of owl that we have here on the park that's native in the last calendar year, so I think that's really cool. And we're building our photo library of all this stuff, and it's available for us for use for publication, education, whatever that may be. And then I've, kind of kicking myself now. I'm meeting with one of the young ladies from Allegheny College on next Tuesday that's doing coyote research out here, which I did mine on, and she was wondering if I had old photos. Well, I kind of purge. I only keep the best of the best. I only need so many, but now I kind of wish I would have. So making me rethink how we're going to save some of this photo documentation of things that we're capturing for other things in the future.
And realizing too with Mark, these photo vouchers also are great possible additions to the collection museum as well. So by, we're also collecting data and collecting our educational materials all at the same time.
Yeah. So our team has had great support from local management, regional management, and statewide management to do all this. And the statewide meeting was held here in Erie, and our team won the Louis Bravado Award for the digital work that we've been doing, our classroom next door, and everything. And then it has also spurred the DCNR executive staff was here, and there's Mr. Tom Ridge. And hopefully maybe we can kind of get some ideas going where DCNR can get the handcuffs off and actually get like a YouTube channel and stuff where we can share this stuff out there all the time instead of just when we do a program. We're not allowed to record and share stuff. And I see it both ways, but it'd be nice to have it out there. Some of this really unique, cool experience stuff that people can look up if they're planning a visit.
That has been our number one question when they watch a virtual program with us. Can you record it? And unfortunately, our answer is no at the moment. But it shows us that there is the need and the want to be able to see what we're doing at any time.
Last one. So I'm going to let this play, and this is our latest addition. Is Jeanette and her team has allowed us to get some drone footage now. It's going to play.
Which being able to use a drone is going to be awesome. And you'll see in this video the perspective of how we can use this in education.
This was part of our resource management project that we did out at Erie Bluffs in early October. We did a controlled burn there. So gave us a really nice perspective. We were on the line. Holly was there, but was not allowed anywhere near it, so she couldn't document it. And we were able to get Sean up there with the drone and film all this and kind of show us in action because we were on the fire literally. I did some shots with my cell phone afterward. Wasn't thinking one of us should have been wearing our GoPro, but you think of this stuff afterwards. Had other worries going on.
You live and you learn.
So I guess while that kind of runs through, if anybody has any questions or anything, we are open.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'll just say from your video of the winter time on the lake, that was one of our best field trips because nobody goes to the beach in March. And so the students that got to see little icebergs floating by, and we got lucky, it was a nice day, it wasn't windy, but it was still winter. But that was great. And then I wanted to thank you guys because the one community college class we had two of them, we did the pontoon boat tour and then another bus tour. And then you guys see things like the little owl in the tree. You guys see things that everybody else walks right by and has no idea it's up there. And you're like, hey, look at this. And so they were it opened up so much for them that they're looking at the park maybe a little more closely or a little differently
And that's our goal.
That's our goal. There's stuff out there that they might not be picking up on.
Yeah, I mean, any opportunity we can get to just kind of maybe show someone how to see a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
And heck, we've been at it for a long time. We still miss stuff too. But
It never fails. We might see something when we don't have the camera or something. So
and like this was incredible. I was on the mop-up crew, and Ray is laying fire.
I'm running right there. Well, I'm down here now on that line.
And I'm way in the back, getting covered in smoke.
See the yellow dots of people that are lighting.
But the methodology, we worked with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, their fire crew. Those guys, we were greenhorns, brand new rookies on this prescribed fire. They just brought us in we've been with them for a while. It was amazing. It was so methodical, so well controlled. The science behind the methodology of the burn boss, right down to the mop crew, the ignition team. It was incredible to be part of that and see exactly how that fire was contained. We didn't have any spot fires over any of the fire lines that we had. We had a few hot spots along the edge that we, mop-up crew took care of. But all in all, what was the total number? 40 acres?
40 acres.
And what,
We laid, 12:10, I think we dropped fire, and we were loading the UTVs at 2:30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fine.
So,
Yeah.
It went a little quicker than they thought.
yeah. So,
And we've been doing some photographs too. I took some photographs about 2 weeks after the burn, and there's some green spots already coming up afterwards. The thing that both him and I were really surprised of, right after we burned this, mostly that was left standing was the milkweed. The milkweed was pretty fire tolerant. And then 2 days later, the milkweed pods were opening and dispersing their seed, and there were white fluff seeds all over the burn site. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes up this spring at this particular site. So I think there's a lot of research opportunities to come. So keep that in
There you go.
the back of your mind, right? I mean,
Kid wants to lead that one.
the gifted students, that would be,
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunities there, I think, special field trip out to the bluffs.
Whoever was down for that.
Looks like the wind was agreeing with you too.
It was perfect.
Yeah, that was the whole,
It was like perfect.
And they have such special parameters. It was 5 to 8 mile-an-hour winds, southwest. So it was perfectly going in the exact direction they wanted. If there were winds sustainable around 8, they would have shut it down.
Yeah.
So it had to be right in that small
And
window.
it was the
Burn
first
dead
time.
grass in the pathways?
we prevented that. We
No.
tried to prevent that. So our maintenance crew came out there and they really,
With rubber flappers.
yeah. And then they went around, he was on one of the water crews, they got literally just a little, it was a pump with a little sprayer like you would use in your
Like a garden
yard.
hose, yeah.
And they would just spray an edge there and it was all that it took to kind of knock it out, so.
But it's interesting, what's in the water, they add liquid Dawn dish soap to the water to actually make it more wet. So it takes less water to actually put the fire out. It was really cool. That was something I learned.
Yeah.
When you guys are taking photos of like creatures in the park and everything, do you record GPS coordinates for those?
We do not, but I ran into one gentleman that showed me the little chip that you can put into your phone, and I do want to get one of those.
Yeah, we
and
just learned
look,
about
so, yeah, I think that would be again for photo vouchers and stuff. I think that would be something that's important. Now, most of them I can look at and know where I saw them, but this is only a year and a half in. I'm sure my mind isn't going to continue for remembering every photo that I took.
Right, and
So,
maintaining that data.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're constantly looking at new toys to upgrade the things. I mean, you're my go-to, so you know what I'm talking about. But like the frame you have around your camera is something I'm going to look into, and then that GPS chip on there because I think that's something that could be important.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
guys.
That video of the prescriber, that came out good.
That came out
I'm
really good.
happy with it. Yeah.
Sean did an amazing job on it.
Oh, I tried loading it. I'm sorry. I can't get it to upload in it. The only thing I do is put it on a jump drive and mail it. I tried uploading it to Teams or anything.
Have a jumpy down.
Right, fine.